My wife cheated on me with my best friend, but what happened next left everyone in shock. The sound of her laugh was echoing through the room as I held the phone shaking in my hand. There, on the screen, everything was: the messages, the photos, the whispered audios. My 15-year-old wife, Sandra, telling my best friend Rodrigo that I was a pathetic failure and could barely wait to get rid of me. It was her 45th birthday day, and I had just discovered that my whole life was a lie. "Carlos, will you stay there all day?" Her voice cut my thoughts like a blade. Sandra was in the kitchen setting the snacks for the party, beautiful as always, wearing that red dress I had bought for her last month. "The guests will arrive in an hour, and you haven't even traded yet." "I'm going, love." The word came out of my mouth like broken glass. Love. How could I still call her like this after what I had seen? "My name is Carlos Eduardo. I'm 52 years old. I'm an electronics technician, and I always considered myself a lucky man. I have been working for 20 years in the same company. I have a home in the Rio suburb, 2 wonderful children, Julia, 22, and Pedro, 19, and a wife. I always thought I loved me. I always thought." Sandra arrived in my life when I was 37 years old. She was a seller in a beautiful clothing store with that smile that illuminated any environment. I fell in love in the first look. During the early years, she seemed really happy, but things started to change about 3 years ago. Sandra became colder, more demanding. "Look, Rodrigo, Carlos, always doing well in life. Why don't you learn from him?" Rodrigo arrived early, as he always did. He and I have known each other for 25 years since we started working together. He was my godfather of my children, practically a brother. When he lost his job last year, I was the one who offered money. When his ex-wife moved to Sao Paulo taking her daughter, I was the one who held his crying night. "So, brother," Rodrigo greeted me with that fake hug hitting my back. "Where's the birthday girl?" "It's in the kitchen." My voice came out drier than normal, and he didn't seem to notice. The house was gradually filled. Neighbors, colleagues at Sandra's work, some relatives. Everyone laughing, drinking beer, eating the savory that I had made a point of ordering the most expensive confectionery in the neighborhood. 60 reais the dozen, but it was the birthday of the woman I loved. Sandra was radiant, receiving compliments, gaining hugs. Rodrigo did not take off on her side. They exchanged glances when they thought no one was seeing. She touched his arm when he told a joke. He whispered something in her ear and she laughed like that, the same way she laughed at me when we dated. "Dad, are you okay?" Julia approached, worried. My daughter was always smart, always realized when something was wrong. "You're kind of weird today." "I'm fine, daughter. Only tired." Lie. I was shattering inside. That's when Sandra climbed into a chair and crashed a spoon in the glass, asking for everyone's attention. "Guys, I wanted to thank you for your presence today. 45 years. She took a dramatic break and everyone laughed. "It's a special age, right? An age when we stop thinking about what really matters in life." She looked straight at me, and for a second, I thought she would say something affectionate. "Carlos," she continued, and the silence has taken over the room. "You have been a present husband all these years. Present. Not affectionate, not wonderful. Present. As if I were just a furniture in the house. But today I want to make a special ad for you." Sandra took a deep breath and I felt my stomach plummeted. "Rodrigo, come here." My best friend approached the chair with a smile I had never seen before, a victory smile. "Guys, it's hard to say that, but..." Sandra took Rodrigo's hand. "Carlos and I decided to separate, and Rodrigo will help me in this new phase of my life." The silence was deafening. I felt like punched my stomach. Julia released a stuffy scream. Peter knocked his glass on the floor. The guests were paralyzed, looking from me to her, hers to him. "Sandra," my voice came out like a hoarse whisper. "Carlos, no scene, please." She came down from the chair, still holding Rodrigo's hand. "You are a good man, but we both know that it has not worked for a long time. Rodrigo and I, we understand each other in a special way." "Are you serious?" The voice of my sister-in-law, Marcia, cut the air. "Sandra, what clowning is this?" "It's not clowning, Marcia, it's life." Sandra lifted her chin, challenging. "Carlos will understand. He was always a man. Understanding. She was calling me of the muggle in front of everyone. "Dude, sorry, but..." Rodrigo finally said, pretending embarrassment. "It happened, you know. We tried to resist, but the heart. His heart had been plotting a way to steal my wife, my house, my life for months." The guests began to move, uncomfortable. Some were already taking their bags, whispering apologies and heading to the door. Others stayed to observe the horror show. "And the children?" Pedro finally spoke, the embargoed voice. "The kids will be with me, of course." Sandra looked at them with a forced smile. "You will understand when you are older." "Look, Carlos," Sandra continued, ruthless. "I already talked to a lawyer. You can stay in the house until you find an apartment to rent. You don't have to be dramatic." Apartment for rent. The house I built with my own sweat, working overtime for 15 years. She was pouring me out of my own home. That's when Rodrigo approached me. putting his hand on my shoulder. Carlos, man, I know it's hard, but you'll see it's better that way. Sandra deserves to be happy, and you also deserve to find someone who really values you, someone who values me. He was implying that Sandra didn't value me after stealing her from me. Take your hand out of me. My voice came out low but firm. Dude, it's not like that. We can continue to be friends. Take your hand out of me, I shouted, and the whole room was silent again. Rodrigo retreated, pretending to be scared. Sandra shook her head as if I was uncontrolled crazy. Okay, now you saw why it didn't work anymore, she told the remaining guests. Carlos has always been kind of unstable. 15 years taking care of her when she was sick, working 2 jobs to pay her college, and I was unstable. I ran to the backyard needing air. My chest was tight. My hands trembled. Behind me, I heard the murmurs, the people commenting, some leaving, others staying to see what would happen most. That's when I felt someone following me. He was Dona Concepcion, the elderly neighbor who had lived in the house next to 30 years. Carlos, boy, are you okay? No, Dona Concepcion, I'm not fine. The tears I was holding finally came down. Boy, I need to tell you something. She looked around, making sure no one was listening. I didn't want to put myself, but I saw things. Things you need to know. What things? This Rodrigo there, he's not who you think it is. And this whole story, she paused, looking at the house again. There's a much uglier thing behind it. My heart fired. What do you mean, Dona Concepcion? Tomorrow, when all this confusion passes, you come to my house. There are some things you need to see. A few things that will show that this Sandra and this Rodrigo, they are so trying to steal you more than you think. She squeezed my hand and returned into the house, leaving me alone in the backyard with her head boil. What things had she seen? What were Sandra and Rodrigo plotting beyond betrayal? And why did Dona Concepcion seem so sure that something much darker was going on? The night was the longest of my life. I stayed up until 4 in the morning, lying on the living room couch. I couldn't climb to the room I divided with Sandra for 15 years. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the scene repeating himself. She holding Rodrigo's hand, announcing our separation as if choosing the ice cream taste in the supermarket. At 6 in the morning, I got up and made coffee. The house was silent. Sandra had slept in the room, the boys in their rooms. No one went down to breakfast with me as we had been doing every day for years. It was as if I had become a ghost in my own home. At 8 o'clock in point, I knocked on the door of Dona Concepcion. She still opened on a robe, but with her eyes widely awake as if she couldn't sleep either. I was waiting for you, boy. Get in. Go. Her house smelled fresh coffee and sugarloaf. It was a simple but very well cared for. Dona Concepcion took me to the kitchen and served a coffee that was delicious. Carlos, before I show you what I saw, you need to promise me something. It won't do bullshit. It won't go on anyone without thinking. I promised Dona Concepcion. I just want to understand what is happening. She went to a closet and returned with a pear-filled shoebox. Boy, I have a habit of keeping everything. Letters that arrive here by mistake. Things that the wind brings in my backyard. Look this here. She took a yellowish envelope. It arrived at my mailbox about 2 months ago, but it was for your home number. As you were traveling, I saved to deliver later, but I ended up forgetting. I took the envelope. It was from the central bank, addressed to Sandra Maria Santos Silva, my wife. I opened with tremendous hands. We report that savings account number 45678 in its name received a deposit of $180,000 from investment settlement, 180,000 reais. My wife had 180,000 reais in an account that I never knew that existed. Dona Concepcion, this here, she never told me about this account. Yeah, boy, and there's more. She took another roll from the box. This one I found in the trash in front of your house on a strong wind. It was torn, but you could put the pieces together. It was a handwritten letter, with the letter of Rodrigo. Sandra, love, I've transferred the 80,000 of my account to yours as we agreed. When we are together, we will use this money to buy that house in Barra. Carlos will never know where the money came from, and when he signs the separation papers, the current house is ours too. You are very smart, my beautiful. I felt the floor disappear under my feet. They were not just having an affair, they were planning to steal everything I built. There's more, Carlos. Dona Concepcion took a pounded sheet. This fell from Rodrigo's car the other day when he was leaving his house. It was a copy of a power of attorney that gave Sandra power to sell our house without my signature. Power of attorney for sale of property. Grantor Sandra Maria Santos Silva. Granted Rodrigo Mendes da Costa. My voice failed. Dona Concepcion. They falsified my signature. Boy, worse than that. Look at the date of the power of attorney. I looked. It was 3 months ago. 3 months before yesterday's party. They planned all this, Dona Concepcion. The separation, the humiliation, all to get me out of the house and stay with my goods. And that's not all, Carlos. They talk loudly when they think no one is listening. Last week I heard Sandra talking on the phone. When he leaves home, we sell everything and disappear from here. With the money we have saved, we can start new life in another state. My head was spinning. 15 years of marriage, and my wife was planning to steal me and disappear with my best friend. That's when the memories began to return. I remembered 3 months ago, when Sandra insisted for me to sign some of the bank's rolls. She said it was to increase the credit card limit. I signed without reading properly, trusting her as I always did. I also remembered when Rodrigo began to appear at home more often. I'm going through a difficult phase, brother. You don't mind if I stop by to talk to you, right? And I, like an idiot, always received him with open arms. Dona Conceição, they deceived me for months. While I thought I was helping my best friend, he was planning to destroy my family. Boy, you were always too good. Trust in the wrong people. She held my hand. But now you know the truth. The question is, what are you going to do? I returned home with the hidden papers inside the shirt. My head was 1,000 an hour, trying to process everything I discovered. 180,000 R's hidden, falsified power of attorney, escape plans. It was much worse than I imagined. When I entered home, Sandra was in the kitchen, having coffee with a face of those who slept very well, as if destroying a family was the most natural thing in the world. Good morning, Carlos. Did you sleep well on the couch? The irony in her voice made me grind my teeth. I slept. I tried to look normal, but my voice came out strange. Look, we need to talk about the details of the separation. Rodrigo knows a very good lawyer. He can take care of everything to be faster. Of course you know. The lawyer who was going to help them steal legally. Sandra, why will we do not talk better about it? Carlos, it doesn't start. Yesterday you've done a scandal in front of everyone. Let's be adults. It didn't work among us. Simple as that. Simple as that. 15 years of marriage. And for her was that simple. That's when Julia came down to the kitchen, her eyes swollen from crying so much. Mother, Dad, can't you solve this? Can't you try it again? Sandra sighed, as if her daughter's question was an annoyance. Julia, my daughter, you are 22 years old. You are already big to understand that sometimes things do not work. But why did it have to be at my party, in front of everyone? Julia started to cry again. It was very humiliating to Dad. Humiliating? Sandra lifted her voice. Julia, I didn't humiliate anyone. I just said the truth. And by the way, maybe you are good to know that your father is not holy as you think. Like this? I asked, feeling the blood climb to my head. Do you think I don't know your escapes, Carlos? Your extra activities? Extra activities? Was she insinuating that I betrayed her? I, who never looked at another woman in 15 years of marriage? Sandra, what extra activities? What are you talking about? You don't make a misunderstanding, Carlos. Those Saturday works you did so much. Those outputs with the colleagues. Do you think I'm silly? Julia looked at me with an expression of confusion. The Saturday work I did were extra electrical installations to increase our income. The colleagues I left with were 2 technicians from the company who played dominoes on the corner bar once a month. Mother, what story is this? Dad always worked to support us. Ah, Julia, you're still too young to understand certain things. Sandra looked at me with contempt. Men always get excuses to leave home. It was unbelievable. After betraying me with my best friend, after planning to steal me, she still had the face of hardening me for betrayal. Sandra, this is a lie, and you know that. Yeah, Carlos? So why were you always coming home so late on Saturdays? Why did you always bathe before Greeking me? I took a shower because I came back dirty with work, smelling of welding and electric wire, but explaining this to her in front of Julia would be to give credit to an absurd accusation. That's when Peter came down, still in pajamas. Mom, can you stop this? Everyone on the street is commenting on what happened yesterday. The neighbors are looking at us as if we were crazy family. Pedro, don't overdo it. I'm not exaggerating, Mother. Dona Maria asked if you were right on your head. He said he never saw a woman finish marriage on her birthday. Sandra turned red. Dona Maria, who is going with her life. And Uncle Rodrigo, Mother? How could you do this with Dad? He always treated Uncle Rodrigo as a brother. Peter, you don't understand. Love happens. You can't control it. Love. She called that love. Steal, lie, plan, escape. All in the name of love. Mother, this is not love. This is naughtiness. Peter was visibly angry. Daddy never hurt anyone. He always worked honestly to give everything we needed. Honestly? Sandra laughed bitter. Your father won what in life? A little house in the suburb, a used car, a wage that barely gives the math. Rodrigo at least has ambition. Ambition. Rodrigo's ambition was to steal everything I built. Sandra, my voice came out firmer. You're being very unfair. Unjust? Carlos, do you want me to lie to my children? Do you want me to say you are a great provider? That you gave me the life I dreamed? Julia and Peter looked at me with a pity expression that broke my heart. Sandra was destroying the image my children had from me. Mom, stop that. Julia was crying. Daddy has always done the best he could. The best one could not be enough, Julia. Rodrigo showed me that life may be different, that I can have more than that here, more than that here. Our home, our family, our life. For her, it was just this here. That's when the phone rang. Sandra answered quickly, as if waiting for the call. Hello? Hi, love? She spoke low but loud enough for everyone to hear. No, I haven't talked to him yet about the papers. Okay, you arrive here, what time? Kiss. She hung up and looked at us as if nothing had happened. It was Rodrigo. He comes here later to talk about the details. What details? I asked. From the separation, Carlos. From the division of goods. Of these boring things that need to be resolved. Division of goods. With the falsified power of attorney and the 180,000 hidden, she already knew exactly how this division would be. Pedro got up from the table, throwing the spoon on the plate. I can't take this situation anymore. I go to Grandpa's house. Julia also got up. Dad, do you want me to stay here? No, daughter. You can go. It will be better that way. When we were alone, Sandra looked at me with a cold expression I had never seen before. Carlos, I'll talk once. You can make it easy or difficult, but it will happen anyway. Sandra, 15 years of marriage. Doesn't that mean nothing to you? It meant as it lasted. But people change, Carlos. I changed. I got tired of being the wife of the electronics technician who earns 2 minimum wages. 2 minimum wages. I worked 12 hours a day to support a family, and she talked about my salary like a shame. And the boys? Did you think of the boys? The boys will understand, and they will have a better life with Rodrigo. He has higher plans than fixing television for the rest of his life. That's when she climbed to the bedroom, leaving me alone in the kitchen. I took the papers that Dona Concheição showed me, which were hidden in the pocket of the shirt. Falsified power of attorney, secret account, escape plans. She wasn't just leaving me for another man. Elliot was stealing me. Worse, I was making my own children believe I was a failure, an inappropriate husband, an ambitionless man. But now I knew the truth, and I was going to use these tests to show who were really Sandra and Rodrigo. That's when I heard a car stopping in front of the house. I looked out the window and saw Rodrigo coming down from a silver Corolla that I had never seen before. A new, beautiful, expensive car. Where has an unemployed man for months got money to buy such a car? When I saw Rodrigo coming down from that silver Corolla, I felt the blood boil in the veins. A man who asked me 1,500 reais borrowed 2 months ago was now driving a car that cost at least 40,000. I took a deep breath and decided to pretend I didn't know anything. If they wanted to fool me, I would let them hang themselves with their own rope. Carlos! Rodrigo entered the house like the owner, with that fake smile that I now saw clearly. So, brother, did you sleep well? I slept. I forced a smile. New car, Rodrigo? Bonito, huh? Ah, that. It's used. I took a bargain, you know how it is. He looked away quickly. Where is Sandra? Here, love. Sandra down the stairs, threw herself on his arms and kissed the mouth in front of me, in my own home. Seeing that was like taking a shot in the chest, but I kept the face of landscape. I needed to find out how far their naughtiness went. Carlos, sit there that we need to talk. Rodrigo gave a gesture as if he were the one who sent it in my room. Let's solve this as civilized men. I sat on the couch where I slept the night before. Sandra and Rodrigo settled on the front couch, holding hands, like a couple in love. Look, Carlos, Sandra started. I know yesterday was intense, but now we need to think about the future. Rodrigo knows a very good lawyer, Dr. Antonio, who can take care of everything for us. That's right, brother. Rodrigo took some papers from his pocket. Dr. Antonio has already prepared a draft of the agreement. It's all very fair, you will see. I took the papers and pretended to be reading carefully, but my mind was calculating. They had everything ready. The lawyer, the documents, the plan. How long have you been plotting this? It's here, Carlos. Sandra pointed to a line on the paper. The house is with me because of the kids, right? You better have stability. You get the car and half the furniture. The house I built was with her. The old car of 2010 was with me. What generosity. And the savings account? I asked, testing how far their wooden face was. What about savings account? Sandra frowned, as if she didn't know what I was talking about. Our savings account, Sandra. The one we have been together for years. Oh yeah, there's a little money there, Carlos. About 2,000, 3,000 at most. It's not even worth dividing. 2,000 reais. She was lying in my face over the 180,000 I had hidden. Yeah, brother, Rodrigo added. These small accounts we don't even get our heads. The important thing is to divide the larger goods. Larger goods. The only bigger good was the house they wanted to steal from me. Okay, I said, pretending to agree. But I would like to see these papers calmly. Can I stay with them today? Of course. Sandra smiled, relieved. You read calmly and tomorrow we sign everything. Dr. Antonio said that in a week everything is resolved. A week. In a week they wanted to get me out of the house and disappear with everything. By the way, Carlos, Rodrigo got up. I brought some boxes in the car, for you already separating your things. You know, to make it easier to change. Boxes. They had already brought boxes to expel me from home. What haste is this, guys? I tried to seem confused. Can't we think better? Carlos, it doesn't start. Sandra sighed, as if I were a stubborn child. The faster the better for everyone. The kids are suffering. The neighbors are commenting. It's true, brother. Rodrigo put his hand on my shoulder again. And look, you won't be helpless. I can help you find a nice apartment to rent. Apartment he was going to help me to find, probably far from there so I don't disturb their plans. Let me get the boxes. Rodrigo left for the garage. When we were alone, Sandra approached me. Carlos, I hope you won't make things difficult. You have always been a smart man. Sandra, can I ask you a question? He speaks. Did you love me someday? Really? She was silent for a moment as if thinking about the answer. Carlos, you were a good husband, worker, dedicated, but sometimes we marry thinking they know the person and then find out that it is not so. Like this? You never had ambition, Carlos. He never wanted to grow in his life. He was accommodated in that job, in that life. I got tired of dreaming small. Dream small. Unestimated. To support you, a family was to dream small. And Rodrigo has ambition? Rodrigo has a vision of the future. He showed me that life may be different. That's when Rodrigo returned with 3 cardboard boxes. Okay, Carlos, these here should give to their clothes and personal effects. 3 boxes to summarize 15 years of my life in that house. Rodrigo, can I talk to you in the backyard? Of course, brother. We went out to the backyard. Far from Sandra, I decided to test my former best friend. Rodrigo, we have been friends for 25 years. We are really, Carlos, and we will continue to be. So explain one thing. How did you get money for this new car? His smile was hesitated in half. I told you, man, it was a bargain. The owner was in need of money fast. How much did you pay? 20,000. A bearded. 20,000 reais. A man who borrowed 1,500 20,000 to buy a car. And where did you get these 20,000, Rodrigo? Carlos, why are these questions? Are you suspicious of something? His mask was falling. The voice got colder. Not suspended. Just curious. You were unemployed. It was, but it gave some sales, some freelance work. The life of the return over, right, brother? Freelance work that surrendered at least 20,000 reais in 2 months. What convenient. Rodrigo, tell me the truth. You and Sandra planned it for a long time? He looked at me in the eye for the first time since he arrived. Carlos, love happened. We didn't plan anything. It was fate. Destination? Yeah, man. Sometimes 2 people connect in a special way. It happened to me and Sandra. And where did you connect? When? Carlos, what is this interrogation? It seems that you are investigating us. It was really, and he noticed. I'm not investigating anything, Rodrigo. I just want to understand how my best friend and my wife fell in love without me noticing. It happened slowly, man. Conversations, affinity, you were always working. Sandra was needy. Now it was my fault for working to support the family. And when did you decide that I should know? Yesterday was impulse, Carlos. Sandra couldn't stand pretending. Woman in love is like that. Impulse. Announcing a separation on her birthday in front of everyone, it was impulse. Rodrigo, I'll ask you a question, and I want you to answer me as a man. Do you consider me a brother? He hesitated. For the first time, he hesitated. Of course, Carlos. I always considered it. So why didn't you talk to me before? Why didn't you arrive and said, dude, I'm in love with your wife? Because I knew you were going to suffer. I wanted to spare you. Humiliating me in front of 50 people? Carlos, it wasn't humiliation. It was just a way to make things easier. Who's easier for? That's when Sandra appeared at the kitchen door. Are you talking about what out there? Just clarifying some things, I said. Carlos, I hope you are not complicating the situation. Her voice had a veiled threat. Complicating how, Sandra? Doing drama, inventing theories. You know how you look when you're nervous. How do I get? Paranoid. Suspicious. Sometimes you invent things that don't exist. Paranoid. Now I was paranoid for suspecting that my wife and best friend were stealing me. Sandra, what things have I invented? Carlos, let's not fight in front of Rodrigo. She looked at him as if to ask for help. We're not fighting, just talking. Look, brother, Rodrigo intervened. How about you take time to process all this? It will be better for everyone. Take a while. Getting home to them to feel comfortable. It's a good idea. Sandra agreed quickly. Carlos, why won't you spend a few days at your mother's house? Or at Marcia's house? They wanted to get me out of the house. They wanted to be alone to run their plan. No, I won't leave my house. The silence that followed was heavy. Sandra and Rodrigo exchanged a look that confirmed all my suspicions. Carlos, Sandra said slowly, don't be stubborn. It would be better to you. For me, it would be worse. Why are you being so difficult? Rodrigo asked, and for the first time I heard irritation in his voice. Hard? Am I hard for not wanting to leave the house I built? Carlos, Sandra raised her voice, you're being childish. The situation is already defined. Defined by whom? For you? Defined by life, she shouted. I don't love you anymore, Carlos. I love Rodrigo. Accept that. Her cry echoed through the backyard. Some neighbors must have heard. Calm down, Sandra. Rodrigo tried to calm her down. Carlos, man, let's calm down. No, Rodrigo. I got tired of being calm. Sandra was visibly altered. Carlos, you will sign these rolls and leave this house. It's better for everyone. What if I don't want to? You don't want to. We solve it another way. What other way? Sandra and Rodrigo looked at each other again. Carlos, Rodrigo said quietly, there are things you don't know. Things that can complicate your life. What things? You have been working at the Santos Electrical, right? Sandra spoke slowly. It would be a pity if your boss knew of certain irregularities. My heart stopped. What irregularities? Rodrigo told me some things, Carlos, about those extra jobs you did, about the materials I borrowed from the company. They were threatening me. They wanted to invent that I stole material from the company where I have been working for 20 years. This is a lie, and you know. Is it a lie? Sandra smiled coldly. So explain how you managed to reform our house spending so little. Explain where those electric wires, those circuit breakers came from. I bought everything. I have the invoices. Are you really, Carlos? Rodrigo asked. Do you really have the invoices of everything? They knew I didn't keep all invoices from 15 years ago. They knew it would be my word against theirs. You are a bitch, children. The anger finally exploded. Carlos. Sandra pretended to be shocked. What language is this? The language of a man who found that his wife and best friend are thieves. Thieves? Rodrigo took a step toward me. Watch out for what you say, Carlos. Or what are you going to do? Rodrigo, no. Sandra held his arm. Carlos is nervous. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I know very well what I'm talking about. I know the 180,000 reais, Sandra. I know the fake power of attorney. I know everything. Her face paled. Carlos, you, how did I know? Did you think I was going to steal me and I wouldn't find out? Rodrigo advanced on me, but Sandra held him. Rodrigo, no. The neighbors. What 180,000, Carlos? Rodrigo tried to disguise, but his voice was shaky. You're delirious. I'm delirious? And the central bank account? And the 80,000 you have transferred to her? And the plans to buy home in Barra? They were silent, caught with the mouth in the cylinder. Carlos, Sandra spoke low. You don't understand the situation. I understand very well. You wanted to steal me, kick me out and disappear with my money. What, your money? Rodrigo exploded. This money is from Sandra, she who got it. You never knew how to make money in life. Rodrigo, shut up. Sandra tried to make him stop talking. No, Sandra. I got tired. He was out of his mind. This one never knew how to make money. I never knew how to value you. It was 20 years gaining misery while you sacrificed. How did she get 180,000 raise, Rodrigo? This is not your account. It's my account, yes. She's my wife. It was your wife. Now she is my wife. That's when Sandra did something that froze my blood. She took off her cell phone from her pocket and started dialing a number. What are you doing? Calling the police. She looked at me coldly. You're threatening us. You're being aggressive, I'm afraid. Sandra, don't do that. Hello? Police? I need help. My husband is threatening me. It's being violent. Rua das Flores, 245. She was calling the police, inventing that I was being violent to get me out of the house. When I heard the car siren approaching, I felt the desperation take over me. Sandra had achieved. I was going to get me out of the house using the police itself, but that's when something unexpected happened. Police, open the door! The police hit hard on the front gate. I'm already going, Sandra shouted, arranging her hair and placing an expression of scared victim. Rodrigo is by my side. He says you saw him threatening me. But before she reached the gate, Dona Conceição appeared in front of the house with 2 police. Sergeant, it's right here. I called. Dona Conceição looked straight at Sandra. This woman who is trying to fool you. Like this? The sergeant, a 45-year-old black man, frowned. Dona Conceição? Sandra was pale. Did you call the police? I called, yes, girl. I called because I heard you screaming here in the backyard threatening Carlos. And I called because I have proof that you are committing a crime. My heart fired. Dona Conceição had saved me. What evidence? Rodrigo tried to disguise his nervousness. Sergeant, Dona Conceição took an envelope out of her bag. Here is everything. False power of attorney, hidden bank account, plans to steal the boy's house. The sergeant took the papers and began to examine. Your countenance was serious. Who is Carlos Eduardo here? It's me, Sergeant. And are you? He pointed to Sandra and Rodrigo. I'm his wife, and this is a family friend. Sandra tried to sound innocent. Wife who is trying to steal her husband, Dona Conceição added. Sergeant, look this and document there. Power of attorney to sell the house without its signature. and this bank account with 180,000 reais hidden. The sergeant studied the papers for a few minutes. Then he looked at me. Lord Carlos, do you know this signature? I looked at the power of attorney. It was my signature, but something was wrong. Sergeant, this signature was fake. I never signed it. How can you prove it? Because I am a left-handed and this signature was made by a right person. Look at the angle of letters. The sergeant analyzed again and agreed with his head. And this bank account, ma'am? He asked Sandra. Do you know her existence? They are personal economies, Sandra stammered. Personal economies of 180,000 reais in an account only in your name, hidden from your husband? Sergeant, Rodrigo intervened. This is a family issue. It's not a police case. Failing document is a police case, yes, sir. The sergeant looked at him with authority. And the Lord is who in this story? Rodrigo Mendez. I'm family friend for 25 years. Friend who is helping to steal the other friend? That's when Dona Conceição took another roll from the bag. Sergeant, there is more. Here is a letter this Rodrigo wrote for Sandra. Talk about buying home in Barra with the money they were going to steal from Carlos. The sergeant read the letter and was visibly annoyed. You two will have to accompany us to give testimony. Testimony? Sandra panicked. Sergeant, this is a misunderstanding. Mal crashed? Lady, falsifying power of attorney is a crime. Estelionate is a crime. You have a lot to explain. That's when Julia and Peter came running. They had heard the siren. Dad, what is going on? Pedro asked, panting. Your parents are separating, and your mother tried to steal your father. The sergeant spoke straight. Are you older? We are, Julia answered, her eyes full of tears. So they can serve as witnesses. Does any one of you knew about this bank account? What bank account? Pedro looked at Sandra, confused. Your mother hid 180,000 reais in a secret account, I explained to my children. 180,000? Julia shouted. Mother, what money is this? Julia, you don't understand. It's complicated, Sandra tried to explain. It's not complicated, Sandra. My voice came out firm for the first time in days. It's simple, you stole. I didn't steal anything. This money is mine. Where did this money come from? Peter was visibly angry. Sandra was silent, but Rodrigo, nervous, ended up talking too much. Pedro, her mother has always been smart with business. She invested well over the years. What investments? Julia was crying with anger. What investments did my mother have? What money? That's when Dona Conceição released the bomb. Girl, her mother sold things from the house and put the money on this account. I saw her selling refrigerator, washing machine, television. I said I was going to exchange for new devices but was actually stealing her husband. My world collapsed again. Sandra wasn't just cheating on me. She was stealing me for years. Sandra, my voice came out broken. The refrigerator you said that broke. The washing machine you said was defective. Carlos, I can explain. Explain then, Julia shouted. Explain how you stole our dad for years. I didn't stole anyone. I was investing for the family's future. Family future? Peter was shaking with anger. What family, Mother? The family you destroyed yesterday? The sergeant intervened. No more discussion. You two, he pointed to Sandra and Rodrigo, will accompany us now. Mr. Carlos, you also need to come to record the occurrence. Sergeant, Sandra tried once again. You don't understand. My husband is violent. He threatened me. Dona Sandra, Dona Conceição said firmly. I heard everything from my window. Who threatened who here was threatening Carlos with lies about his work. The sergeant looked at me. Is that true, Mr. Carlos? They threatened the Lord? It's true, Sergeant. They said they were going to invent that I steal material from the company where I have been working for 20 years. This is a crime, too. Slander and defamation. Sandra and Rodrigo were placed in the car. Before entering, Sandra looked at me with hatred. Carlos, you'll regret it, you'll see. What am I going to regret, Sandra? To find out you're a thief? You don't know everything yet. There are things you never imagined. What else could there be? What other secrets Sandra was hiding? At the police station, the delegate, Dr. Augusto Pereira, a serious man of about 50, received us personally. Dona Conceição had called him before, explaining the situation. Mr. Carlos, do you have a lawyer? I don't have, doctor. I will indicate one for the Lord. This case is serious. Falsifying power of attorney can give up to 4 years in jail. 4 years in jail. Sandra could be arrested because of the crime she committed against me. Doctor, Julia asked, can my mother lose our guard? Daughter, you are of age. But yes, this can influence the eventual dispute of goods. Goods, the house, the car, the secret account. Everything was at stake now. After 3 hours at the police station, giving testimony and providing all the evidence that Dona Conceição had gathered, we returned home. Sandra and Rodrigo were detained for more interrogations. Father, Peter hugged me when we got home. I apologize. Sorry for not realizing what she was doing to the Lord. Son, it's not your fault. Yes, Dad. We always knew she was different, but we never imagined it was capable of that. Julia also hugged me, crying, Dad, I feel so embarrassed. How may she have done this to the Lord who worked so much to give her everything? Daughter, sometimes people change, or sometimes we have never really met them. Dona Conceição prepared a dinner for us. For the first time in days, we sat at the table like a family, a wounded family, but a family. Carlos, Dona Conceição said while the beans served, there's one more thing you need to know. What, Dona Conceição? This investment story, she said. It's a lie. I found out where the real money came from. My heart accelerated again. From where? She was selling drugs, boy. The silence that followed was mortal. Julia knocked down the fork. Peter was pale. What do you mean, selling drugs? Cocaine, Carlos. She and Rodrigo were points of sale here in the neighborhood. I saw the movement at your house when you were not. Cars stopping, strange people entering. My wife was a drug dealer. That is why the 180,000 reais. That's why Rodrigo had money for a new car. Dona Conceição, why didn't you tell me that before? Because I wasn't sure. But last night, after that confusion, I saw Sandra burning some things in the backyard. I went there later and managed to save some papers that didn't burn totally. She took some camiscated papers out of her bag. Here, boy. Sales notes, customer names, values. His wife had been running a trafficking scheme for at least 2 years. 2 years. 2 years selling drugs in my own home while I worked honestly to support the family. Dad, Julia was crying, we need to take it to the police right now. It's true, Father. Now I understand why strange people appeared here when you weren't. Peter was angry, and she still had the courage to call the Lord failed. We returned to the police station that same night. When the delegate saw the papers burned with the notes of trafficking, his eyes shone. Mr. Carlos, this completely changes the situation. Drug trafficking is a heinous crime. There is no bail, and there is no bail. Sandra was going to get stuck. Doctor, it means that your wife and her accomplice will answer for drug trafficking, estelianate, document forgery, and gang formation. We are talking about at least 15 years in jail for each one. 15 years in jail. The woman who destroyed my family in front of 50 people would pay for the crime she committed. But when we got home, it was over the midnight. We found the door broken, and the house. Someone had entered our house and overturned everything. Opened drawers, rolled furniture, pictures on the floor. That's when we found a ticket on the kitchen table. Carlos, you shouldn't have gotten into. Now your daughters will pay for what you did. We know where they study, where they work, where they want to see them alive. Go to São Sebastião Church tomorrow at 20 alone, and takes all the documentation you gave to the police. When I read that note threatening my children, I felt a fury that I had never felt in life. They could have destroyed my marriage, stolen my money, humiliated my family, but moving Julia and Pedro was to cross the red line. I took the phone and called the delegate. Dr. Augustus, they threatened my children. They want me to go to São Sebastião Church at 8 p.m. tomorrow. Calm down, Carlos. That's perfect. That's exactly what we needed to get the rest of the gang. Rest of the gang? Carlos, Sandra, and Rodrigo did not act alone. We have information that there are more people involved. People with power. Influential people. The next morning, the delegate explained the plan to me. I would meet, but the church would be surrounded by police officers to the landscape. They wanted to get the whole organization. Carlos, you will use a clamp. Let's hear everything they say. What if they find out? They won't find out, and your children are protected. We have an EQ wipe taking care of them. At 7:30 p.m., I arrived at the São Sebastião Church. My heart was beating out. Inside the church, there were only a few people praying. I sat on the last bank and waited. At 8 p.m. in point, a well-dressed man with a deer suit sat next to me. I had never seen him before. Carlos Eduardo, it is me. My name is Dr. Henrique Alves. I'm a lawyer. Sandra and Rodrigo told me to talk to you. Dr. Henrique Alves. The name sounded familiar to me. Look, Carlos, you made a very serious mistake by bringing this story to the police. Sandra and Rodrigo are people protected. Protected by whom? For people you don't want to know. He smiled coldly. People who move a lot of money in this city. That's when I understood. Sandra and Rodrigo were just small pieces in a much larger scheme. Doctor, what people are these? Carlos, you worked fixing television while your wife earned 50,000 reais a month. She was smart, visionary. You never knew how to recognize her value. 50,000 per month. Drug trafficking yielded much more than I imagined. And now what do you want? We want you to remove the complaint. Let it be wrong, that the documents were false. In return, you earn 200,000 reais and a passage to another state. What if I don't accept it? Carlos, he got up. You have beautiful children. Julia works at Shopping Bar Azul. Pedro studies at the Federal University. It would be a shame if something happened to them. My blood froze, but I remembered what the delegate had said. Everything was being recorded. Dr. Henrique, who is behind all this? Powerful people, Carlos. Judges, delegates, counselors. People you never imagined were involved. How did Sandra come into this scheme? Your wife has always been ambitious. When she sought a lawyer to divorce you, she was nominated for our office. We saw potential in her. That's when I understood everything. The separation was part of the plan from the beginning. Did you plan the separation? Of course, Carlos. Sandra needed to get rid of you to operate freely. An electronics technical husband didn't match the lifestyle she was going to have. Electronics technician. They spoke of my profession as if it were a disease. And Rodrigo? Rodrigo was the strong arm. He knew you 25 years ago, knew his weaknesses, his routines. It was easy to manipulate the situation. That's when a familiar voice echoed through the church. Very easy indeed. He was Father Miguel, the church parish priest for 20 years. But he was not alone. Beside him came a man of suit that I immediately recognized. It was Judge Claudio Meneses, who had just retired. Father Miguel? I was confused. What are you doing here? Carlos, my son? The priest smiled, but it was a cold smile. I have been their partner for years. The floor disappeared under my feet. The priest of my parish, a man I respected 2 decades ago, was involved in the scheme. Father, like the Lord. Carlos, do you think a church keeps up with tithing? He laughed. We have spending, renovations, employees. We need resources. And money laundering through the donations was the solution we found, added Judge Meneses. Carlos, you got into a much larger thing than you think. Judge Meneses, do you too? Of course, Carlos. Who do you think protected Sandra and Rodrigo when they were arrested other times? Other times, they had been arrested before. Besides, the priest continued, you were very naive. Did you think Dona Conceição was your ally? My heart stopped. Like this? Dona Conceição has worked for us for 3 years, Carlos. All those roles she showed you, we who have it showed. But she helped me. She followed our script to the letter. The judge laughed. We needed you to find out some things to be able to blackmail you better. I was being manipulated from the beginning. Dona Conceição, the woman who thought it was my salvation, was working for them. So did you plan everything? Every detail, Carlos. Dr. Henry took a picture of the pocket. Even this here. It was a picture of Yulia and Pedro leaving college. But they were being followed by men I didn't know. Your children have been watched for weeks, Carlos. A word from us and they disappear. That's when I felt the heavy hand on my shoulder. He was a huge man, clearly a henchman. Carlos, the priest said calmly, you have 2 options. Accept our money and disappear from the city or what? Or you become a newspaper headline. Electronics technician goes crazy and attacks her family. Unfortunately, cases of madness are very common these days. They were going to kill me and say that I had driven crazy. But that's when the church lights all came on at once and voices shouted, police, no one moves. They were at least 20 police officers. I walked through all the doors of the church. Delegate Augusto came in front with the gun in hand. Father Miguel, Judge Meneses, Dr. Henrique, you are in prison. The priest tried to run but was knocked down by 2 police officers. The judge lifted his hands, trying to negotiate. Dr. Henry shouted that he had a privileged forum. Privileged forum does not protect trafficking, the delegate answered dryly. That was when I saw Sandra and Rodrigo being brought into handcuffs into the church. Carlos, Sandra shouted when she saw me. Carlos, you don't know what you did. These people will kill you. They won't, Sandra, because they all go. The delegate approached me. Carlos, you were very brave. We were able to record everything. Father, corrupt judge, lawyer. Let's dismantle the entire organization. And my children, they are safe. They have never left police protection. 3 months later, I was in court for the final judgment. Sandra had been sentenced to 15 years for drug trafficking and estelionato. Rodrigo, 16 years for the same crimes. Father Miguel, 12 years for money laundering. Judge Meneses, 10 years for corruption. Dr. Henrique, 8 years for gang formation. When the judge read the sentences, Sandra looked at me for the last time. Carlos, I hope you are happy with your 2 minimum wages. 2 minimum wages. She still spoke of my profession with contempt, even handcuffed, even condemned. Sandra, I said calmly, at least I sleep with clean consciousness. She lowered her head. For the first time, there was no answer. Today, 2 years later, I am a different man. I kept working at the Santos Electrotechnical, but now I have a workshop in my spare time. Julia married a wonderful boy, and Pedro is finishing college. My mother, Dona Mercedes, who thought she wasn't going to stand the shock, became stronger than ever. My son, she told me last week, you found that the real family is not the one born with you, it's the one with you. And she was right. Dona Conceição, who I discovered later that she knew nothing about the scheme, they had used her name to manipulate me, became a second mother to me. The neighbors who witnessed my humiliation at that party today greet me with respect. Carlos, your Antonio told me another day, we learned that judging people by looking is stupid. You were always a man of value. A man of value. For 15 years, I thought my value was in what I could give to Sandra. Money, home, comfort. But I found that my true value was something she could never steal. My integrity. Last week, I found a ticket at my desk. A new colleague from the company. Lord Carlos, I heard his story. The Lord is an example of how to react when life tests us. Thank you for teaching me that honesty is worth more than wealth. Honesty is worth more than wealth. This phrase was recorded in my heart. Today, when I see a man being humiliated, being diminished, being called failed to earn little or work in a simple profession, I approach and say, brother, your value is not in your salary, it is in your character, and that no one can steal from you. Because that's what I learned in this whole story. Sandra stole me money, stole me years of life, stole my confidence. Rodrigo stole my friendship, stole my dignity, but none of them managed to steal who I really am. I'm Carlos Eduardo, 54, electronics technician, father of 2 wonderful children, son of Donna Mercedes, a man who works honestly to support his family. And there is no crime, no betrayal, there is no humiliation that can change it. On the last day of the parents, Julia and Pedro gave me a recorded sign, for the best father in the world. Thanks for teaching us that being honest is worth more than being rich. I hung this board to the wall of my workshop, and every time I look at her, I remember that no matter how many people try to diminish, humiliate us, make us feel small, what matters is what we carry in the heart. Sandra has been trapped for 2 years. Rodrigo, too. Sometimes I think of them and I don't feel angry anymore. I feel sorry. 2 bad people who had so much in their lives, a family, a house, friends, and threw it out for greed. Today, when I lie down to sleep in my bed, in my house, which I was able to keep after the court recognized that everything was the result of crime, I sleep in peace, because I know I built everything I have honestly, with work, with dignity, and this is a wealth that no one can steal.